Earlier this year, I was taking a funeral and I met with the family on the Wednesday, exactly a week before the funeral was due to take place. And they were telling me more about this woman, and they were saying that at this time of the year it was very easy to know what to buy her. You just bought her anything involving cats, little porcelain figures, calendars if you liked, books, whatever it would be gladly received. Did she ever own one, I asked. Well, no, they said, actually, she didn't. They thought that maybe 30, 35 years ago or something, her best friend bought her a kitten. And they think she kept it for 2.5 weeks, and then she passed it on to someone else. Well, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I was scratching my head, trying to make head or tail of this strange story. Why, when there's something that you desire and you love so much, would you not want the real deal? Sunday came, I led the service here as usual, and there was a baptism afterwards. I made my way to the font in the back corner. I was handed a small baby and laid out along my arm. I was looking down into its beautiful eyes, and it struck me right then the great wisdom that this woman had. Because as much as I like babies, and as much as I love them, as much as anyone else, I certainly don't want one full time. And that's what we get in Jesus today. Certainly not a full-time baby. In fact, we get very little at all about his childhood. Just 2 of our 4 Gospels mention it. And even in those Gospels, 95% of the text is taken up with basically 3 years of his life in his early 30s. Not a full-time baby by any stretch of the imagination. And his birth and his early life don't conform to our expectations. There's never a cute Christ. There's never a Christ snuggled in his onesie after bath time. We don't see that. We get instead a messy birth in a cave, surrounded with working men and farm animals, a hurried journey fleeing from Herod, that self-obsessed tyrant who couldn't imagine a world big enough for himself and another king, and the Holy Family going and seeking refuge in foreign lands. Now, this story about Middle Eastern refugees fleeing an oppressive and murderous political leader has been stingingly appropriate following this year's global events. And it's a fitting reminder for us that far from the cosy homes to which we'll mostly be returning, Jesus' experience of birth and early life was much more like the scenes of birth at checkpoints and on crowded transport that we've seen in the news. His early life was dangerous, and it alarms our modern sensibilities. In fact, such is its ability to cause offence that just a few days ago, an advert picturing the nativity scene was banned. It was created by an organisation called Christmas Starts with Christ, to be shown in the cinemas, and just in the same way that the Lord's Prayer was banned last month, so too it was banned. Well, you'll see and you'll hear and you'll take part in some of those dangerous and offensive images and words tonight. Who would have predicted that church was a place that you'd be going to engage in a bit of X-rated activity? But you know, I think the cinema got it exactly right. The story of Christmas, the words of the Lord's Prayer, they are hazardous. They do have the ability to affect people. They are words with the power to change people's lives. And they are deeply offensive. They're offensive to xenophobia and to tribal pride. Jesus tells us to pray, "Our Father in heaven, my Father and yours." That makes us brothers and sisters one to another, and it places upon us the responsibilities that come with that relationship. Responsibilities for care, for love and companionship. Just as the Holy Family found refuge in Egypt when they fled from Herod's troops, so we bear a responsibility to our brothers and our sisters who are fleeing from persecution. Now, for us, who on the whole have so much to be told that, is quite frightening. It's frightening to be told that we have a responsibility for those with nothing, because it threatens the comfort of our lives, and it often looks like it's going to cost us more than we want to pay. But that's not the only reason. The Nativity and the Lord's Prayer are offensive to our cultural myth that more and more and more is better. If the film of the Lord's Prayer was banned for any reason from the cinema, then this was it. You know that the purpose of advertising is to convince you that you absolutely need something that you didn't even realise that you wanted. You absolutely need something you didn't even realise you wanted. But God's grace provides us with everything we need and doesn't leave us wanting anything. It feels risky for us just to pray for our daily bread, for just as much as we need and no extra. Nothing for a rainy day. And it's a shock to see a baby born into such unprepared conditions, with just enough clothes to keep him warm and just enough to keep him alive. An elderly woman that I regularly visit said to me this year that she told her family not to buy her anything. She said she was just sick of having so much stuff that she couldn't even imagine getting to the end of sorting through it, let alone getting to the end of using all of it. She said, "I don't want money spent on me, I want to spend time." And I think we can all appreciate the wisdom of her words. And finally, the Nativity and the Lord's Prayer are offensive to our ideas about who's important, about who's the greatest, and about who's the least. We make that outrageous claim at the end of the prayer: "The kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, God. You who revealed yourself in the fragile infant Christ." It's not the rich and the powerful and the strong. It's not the action hero and the champion who are in charge. But all power and glory belongs to so small and tender a child. These threatening affronts to our lives are born today in that spectacular moment that God leapt down from heaven to be present with us as the Christ child. There is no doubt that Christmas puts us in great danger. It introduces to us this upside-down God, revealed as one of us, who would go on to preach a new world order and call us to a new way of living that even 2,000 years later we still struggle with. Jesus told his disciples, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another. Then the King will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." We celebrate tonight a God who chose to become human, to know what it's like to be hungry, to be thirsty, to be a stranger in a foreign land, to be naked and sick and imprisoned. And we welcome him with songs of jubilation, with feasting, with celebration. Let us do likewise to our siblings and to his, to all the members of his family, and so fulfill the song of the angels: "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace, goodwill among people." Amen.